Hey, Cleared Job Seekers. We're working hard this summer to record episodes with more great guests from the Cleared community. To make sure we continue to bring you the best content possible, we'll be releasing new episodes every other week this summer. By the start of September, we'll be back to our usual weekly schedule. Enjoy the show!
In order to hold somebody's clearance who has a higher clearance than what is necessary for the contract that you're hiring them on, they have to become what is called surge support on a higher level contract, which means that if there is something going on and the other contract needs to call them up to provide support for various reasons, then the person has to be okay with providing that surge support in order to be able to hold the higher level clearance.
Welcome to Security Cleared Jobs, Who's Hiring and How, the podcast for cleared professionals looking for new opportunities and career advice. We go behind the scenes with recruiters and hiring managers from leading cleared employers to uncover the information you need to make a smart career move. Get ready for insights from this week's guest and your hosts, Kathleen Smith and Rachel Bozeman.
Hello, everyone. It's Kathleen Smith with ClearedJobs.Net. Thank you for joining us again in podcast world. We are here at Security Cleared Jobs, Who's Hiring and How. And I am so glad you're listening with us today. And I am so glad that my co-host Rachel is with us. Rachel, how are you doing today?
You know, I couldn't be any better, and I'm even better than better because I'm taping a podcast with you, my friend. Always a party, so let's get it started.
Let's get it started. So today's guest is Jen Moyars, Associate Director of Talent Acquisition and Resource Management for MindPoint Group. Welcome to the show, Jen.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Well, Jen, as a true recruiter at heart, I love taking a look at people's backgrounds and their resumes, and yours stuck out to me as something pretty interesting. So I see that you have a degree in biology. How in the heck did you end up in the world of recruiting?
Well, I don't know if there was really a intent to be in the world of recruiting. Yes, I do have a degree in biology from the University of Virginia. And at that point in my life, I thought I really want to go into do some medical something or other, maybe, be a pediatrician, and thought that was the way that my life would go. And then my senior year in college, I did a sales internship with the University of Virginia Alumni Association. Ended up being the top seller of student memberships and thought maybe sales is the right way to go. So a couple years, I did some inside and outside sales, and then a recruiter called me to actually talk to me about a job selling Yellow Page ads. And she interviewed me in the office, and at the end of the conversation said, "Have you ever thought about a career in recruiting?" And me at the time in my 20s thought, how hard could it be? There are people that need jobs, and I would have the jobs. Here we are. 15 to 16 years later, clearly not the easiest of careers, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
What a great story. And I'm with you. I have a degree in biochemistry, and I went into sales initially, but ended up in medical sales. But I think having a hard science background does help in sort of being analytical. So I understand that MindPoint has commercial contracts. So tell us about the federal work that you do. What is the work that MindPoint does in the cleared community?
So we as a company are a cybersecurity focused company. So we do everything from security operations centers, everything going along with that. So incident response, cyber threat intelligence, all of the things, right, inside of security operations centers. We also do a lot of governance, risk, and compliance work. Those are people doing the assessments, the FedRAMP people, the ISOs, the policy analysts, the ISIs, all those people as well. So from a functional perspective, we cover really the spectrum of cybersecurity as a whole. In terms of our client base, we just passed our 15-year anniversary in March of this year. So we started over in Department of Justice is really where our contacts were. So with Justice at the current moment, I believe we have about 6 or 7, maybe 8 different contracts with the Department of Justice, but everything we do is federal civilian. So we haven't really dipped our toes in the water for DOD at the current moment. So our big clients are Department of Justice, Department of Treasury, Department of State, those kinds of clients.
And it's always great to sort of clarify that, because I think that a lot of people, when they consider security cleared careers and this kind of work, they always think it's always DOD, it's always IC. And I try to explain to people, no, there's a wide breadth of jobs out there. But one thing that I'm also curious about is MindPoint has grown from 140 employees in 2021 to over 450 today. So, a company that's growing like that, what are the sort of opportunities that's available for a security cleared professional who's joining you?
At the current moment, we are very heavy looking for incident responders on the watch floor. We have quite a bit of GRC work as well as it comes to information system security officers. As I said before, we kind of run the gamut as cybersecurity as a whole. So there are many different functional areas within cybersecurity, whether you are, a hard-coded engineer or you want to be more on the analytical side, running the POAMs and doing all of that documentation that GRC has to offer as well. So we have about 45 open roles at the moment that are for work right now, but we also have a few positions open for work that is in the near future that we're hoping to win through some awards in the next couple months.
Many companies, when they're growing, they grow sort of at a very slow pace. And it looks like when I look at the numbers that you have had a lot of rapid growth. And I would assume that that might open up internal opportunities for employees. So have you seen that happen? Has there been a lot of internal mobility? Have been more opportunities available for people to impact their career because you guys are growing so much?
That is a fantastic question because as we were looking at the rapid growth that we were experiencing a couple of years ago, I believe 2.5 years, almost 3 years ago, we decided to create a resource management department. And within that resource management department, we cover internal mobility, we cover redeployments, we cover upskilling. If you have certain skills or a career path that you'd like to be on, and we can help you put together a couple of steps to take to get to where you want to be. We look at every single employee as a long-term employee, and we want to help you get to the next step in your career with MindPoint Group. So we help to develop the skills that you want and the skills that you need so that we can get you to the actual role that you're looking to get.
Very cool. Love seeing companies invest in their current workforce to be their future workforce. So I think that's definitely a great story to share there. So you mentioned that there's 45 openings that you currently have. And the $1 million question, where are those positions located?
The federal government in the last couple of years, with COVID and everybody was remote, and then they slowly have started giving back to office, back to on-site guidance. With the customers that we have, the majority of our work is going to be hybrid in nature. So you'll go in once a week. I have a couple of contracts that are maybe once or twice a month, but the clients do eventually would like to see your smiling face right in front of them. There's not a whole lot of fully remote work as it relates to cleared jobs anymore. I do have, I think, one remaining contract at the moment that's fully remote, but everybody else is at least once a week in office. And most of our clients are going to be here in the DC metro area as it comes to that.
Let's kind of dig into when we think about those different hybrid opportunities. What are some of the schedules or what are some of the requirements that might exist for those that are looking for that hybrid remote work?
One of the caveats I'd like to throw in here is, a lot of the clients that we work with, some of the considerations they have to look at are the space that they have. During COVID, there was a lot of growth, within the government contracting industry. And so there's not enough space to have everybody come in at the same time all the time. That's why I think they do a lot of this hybrid scheduling as well, because they want to get everybody in at some point, but you can't have 800 people showing up at one time. There's just no space for the federal workers as well as the contractors. Most of the contracts that we have are going to be, once a week in roles that require top secret clearances or that you're in a SCIF. You may be asked to come in a little bit more because you can't do some of that work from home. But I think the majority of hybrid work I have is going to be about once a week, twice a week. There are a couple contracts that are okay with once a month, or they do 1 week a month where everybody comes in maybe the first week of the month, and then you have the remaining 3 weeks that you work at home. So it's really dependent upon the client and really their appetite for having that remote work. As I said, a lot of our clients like to have a lot of FaceTime.
Excellent. You sort of touched on this earlier, and I just want to put it in, sort of perspective. Because of your work in the cybersecurity field, sort of pinpoint for us again your greatest hiring need.
As of 5 minutes ago, we'll call it, it is definitely security operations incident responders, right? The people that are looking at the alerts that are coming in, trying to figure out what the alerts are. They are monitoring the systems. They're working with the engineers on the fixes. We were just awarded a 7-year, $445 million contract for the Justice Security Operations Centers. So we run all of the SOC for the Department of Justice.
Wow, that's pretty amazing and pretty awesome and really great. So you touched on engineers. And when I think of engineers, I think of someone building a bridge. Can you sort of talk about electrical engineers, structural engineers? What kind of engineers are we engineering?
Most of the engineers that we're going to hire are going to be either systems engineers or they're going to be security engineers. So you're working either on specific systems at the, on the client site, working on patches, working on fixes, working on upgrading, kind of more proactive types of functions, within those roles. Or we're hiring security engineers where you're working on security tools that others are using and you're working on, again, patches for those, upgrades for those. Do you have the right tools, even within the environment that you're working on? Is there a new and better one that has just come out, because tools are very fast moving as it comes to an industry themselves. So it's a very unique type of engineer we're looking for, but it's definitely more in the IT realm versus, to your point, the traditional structural engineers or chemical or electrical. That's unfortunately not the functions that we provide.
Or biochemical engineer, which is what I thought I was going to be. But anyway,
Love it. Got the biology back in there.
So one tip that we tell people with clearances, when they're in their job search, you might want to look at a level below what you currently have. So you have hired someone who has a TS, but they only do secret work, but they maintain their TS. I find that a very interesting prospect. Can you explain that a little bit more to us?
We have contracts that range across various contract levels. And in order to hold somebody's clearance who has a higher clearance than what is necessary for the contract that you're hiring them on, they have to become what is called surge support on a higher level contract, which means that if there is something going on and the other contract needs to call them up to provide support for various reasons, incidents that come across, what may have you, then the person has to be okay with providing that surge support in order to be able to hold the higher level clearance. If they come back and say, you know what, I don't want to provide that surge support, then unfortunately I can't hold that higher level clearance. So it's really dependent upon the employee themselves or the candidate themselves on what they're open to as far as us being able to hold higher clearances than what the contract would provide.
Excellent explanation. Thank you.
Speaking of excellent, I've heard many great things about your company culture, and you've already kind of dipped in a little bit talking just about the upskilling, the reskilling, and really investing in your current workforce. But could you tell us a little bit more about the culture there and what type of cleared professionals are you really seeking that will really fit into that amazing culture that you have?
We actually just had a training about this with our managers the other day. And I think that there are two different types of culture in a government contractor. And I say that because for most people, they're going to be on client site every single day. So they have the client culture, what they're going to see in their daily tasking, talking to the client that they're there in. And then you have the MPG culture. So sometimes they're very similar. Sometimes one is more stressful over the other one. But I think in the end, we have some very solid values that we look for in people. And a couple of them are, honesty and transparency and innovation, right? People that are ambitious, people that can provide the services that the client is looking for. I don't think I've ever been in a company prior to MindPoint where I've seen so many people invested in the growth of the organization and what we can provide. Everybody is more than willing to put in extra time to help wherever they need to help. It's not a company where people punch in at 9 a.m. and they punch out at 5 p.m. So it is something that I think people feel kind of that pull to really make sure that we are doing what we need to do in order to grow the company.
Wonderful. So a job search, a candidate, they're doing a lot of presentation to you. It's sort of a quick peek as to who they are and how they're going to be part of the team. So you're forming decisions based on how a candidate sort of presents themselves to you through the entire process. So attention to detail really matters throughout the entire process. Can you sort of expand upon that as far as what you view from a recruiter standpoint? I mean, showing up late, typos on a resume, how they present themselves.
So our interview process is completely virtual. Everything is either over the phone or we have video interviews, and then we make decisions, after that. So there's, I think, a certain etiquette as it comes to kind of interviewing that really makes candidates stand out. I think one of the big things my team and I have talked about is being responsive. We're not asking you to respond to an email 30 seconds after I send it. Definitely not the intent for that. But we are asking, within 24 hours to really make sure that you're connected with your recruiter. They're the ones that are walking you through this process. Secondarily, when you do get on to interviews, being late is something that I think people look at being late as somebody wasting their time, right? They don't value your time as much as you're valuing the time with them. So I always tell people, make sure that you're in a quiet space. Make sure you log on at least a couple of minutes early. If you are having technological issues, immediately contact, your recruiter so that they can remedy the problem. And maybe if you can't hop on a Microsoft Teams call or a video call, we can do it, over the phone as well, something like that. But I'd rather know 3 minutes beforehand rather than 10 minutes after. As it comes to resumes, there are certain positions that I believe the attention to detail as it comes to typos really does matter. If you're going to be working in documentation for what you do as a professional and you come to the table with 6 typos on a resume, unfortunately, that's the first thing that we see, So spell check, have it become your best friend because I think that is something that can make or break, right? Does a recruiter talk to you or do they not? If you are in fact in one of those positions that do require a lot of documentation.
I think my favorite is always when you get a resume and it says, great at attention to detail, and detail is spelled wrong. You're like, really? I have a couple tips I'd like to give to you, my friend, on that one.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Candidates do the craziest things sometimes. And sometimes there's amazing hiring experiences that we've lived through as recruiters, or sometimes there's ones that we've just lived through as recruiters overall. So is there like a really cool or a fun or one that just kind of stands out when you kind of span your career that you'd like to share with us?
I think there's one actually that just happened recently. A couple years ago, we were working on a proposal and I had somebody on a contingent offer for a proposal, and the client, as the government does, took quite some time to award the program. And it was a BPA, which on the civilian side of the house is the same thing as an IDIQ over on the DoD side. So she stuck with me for, I think, about a year and a half. And I had to go back to her and tell her that the actual task order that we had her tagged to, we unfortunately didn't win that. And so we kind of went our separate ways for a couple months. And then about 3 months ago, she came back to me and she had 3 or 4 referrals for me. And I remember talking to my hiring managers thinking, I wonder if she's open because I finally have a role that would fit her that is funded. So I went back to her and she was surprised that I even asked because, again, she had stuck with me. It had been almost 2 years at that point. And she actually is coming on board with me in the next week. So after 2 years of candidate relationships going back and forth and having all those conversations, it paid off. So I always tell recruiters, it's not always the short game. Sometimes it's the long game.
Yeah, that's a great story and reinforces something that I tell job seekers all the time, that it's developing that relationship, sticking with it. And even if you don't need a job, sticking with that relationship and updating and being in touch. Because if you really like that recruiter and you really like that company culture and they don't have a position now, as you just said, funding comes through, contracts come through, and all of a sudden you already know that someone's a really great candidate for that. And all you have to do is pick up the phone. I heard through our little birdie that you can detect AI generated content on a resume or cover letter. Can you tell me about that tool?
So for a lot of the resumes that we have, we use a tool called Grammarly, which most people think is just to, look at what you write and to help you put in the grammar, right? Or to reword things and make it sound better. They also have a separate section that is for looking at plagiarism. So you can upload a resume into their system. They will look at the entire resume and they will tell you what percentage of that resume has been plagiarized from online sources. So plagiarism as it relates to anything on the internet. It will highlight certain passages in somebody's resume and then it'll say, this is plagiarized from this website or this came from here. So it'll actually show you where they're kind of pulling things from. We use that specifically for, again, those functions that you're going to be required to do a lot of writing. we want to make sure you have original thought. We want to make sure that you can format your resume, those kinds of things. And I have had some people come back at over 50%. That's a lot. I think every company, of course, I'm sure has different thresholds. So I don't want to make any assumptions.
Yep.
But I would be very careful as people are writing resumes that there are tools out there, not just the one that we use, but there are tools out there that can detect whether or not you took something from somebody else's resume or somebody else's LinkedIn profile. They are checking all of that.
Love it. How can our listeners get in touch with you or your team?
So there's a couple of different ways. Of course, you can always find me on LinkedIn. My team is very active on LinkedIn. MindPoint is active on LinkedIn, as well as Twitter and Facebook as well. We have a YouTube channel where we will upload videos from some of our directors and some of our other internal folks as well. So check us out in all of those wonderful places. But specifically to, how to send us an email, if you go to our website, onto our careers page, you'll see a couple of links where you can send us. If you don't see something that you're really interested in, you can send us an email with your resume and we'll try and figure out, what we can do. And then we can kind of get in touch in that respect as well.
Jen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed talking with you this morning. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
No problem. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jen.
So Jen had some really great advice today, and I really like the fact that we're seeing both sides of the coin as far as AI generated content. So it can be used to help, but also realize that recruiters are also using it to catch plagiarism. What about you, Rachel?
No, I loved it. I thought Jen had such great advice, and I love that tip that you just gave. I think it is important that AI is to help improve and make you even better. It shouldn't be used as the only source there. As a human, I would like to remind you to get out there and follow our show. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.